Right now, we're walking through the Oregon Country Fair.
Happy Fair!
It's located in a lush forest near Veneta, Oregon. Walking around are fairies and gnomes in colorful costumes, and
The band is coming!
a 40-person marching band that bursts out of nowhere? That's right. The band parades and plays down a path, snaking their way through nearly every corner of the fair.
Feels like you stepped into wonderland or something magical.
The Oregon Country Fair is one of the longest-running art and crafts fairs in the country. It grew out of a 1960s vision of a better world that still continues today. Here, people dream.
Oregon Country Fair is a place to put down the shadows and pick up the versions of yourself that you want to try on.
They celebrate.
Welcome to the Country Fair Show!
I think you feel it the minute you get here. And there's a vibe about it that you just don't get anywhere else.
And connect.
Every year, we're reminded of this way of thinking, this way of accepting other people, being free to express yourself and free to learn new ideas.
It's been called a paradise for hippies. But the history of the fair is complex. It takes place on a native ancestral gathering site.
There's a part of hippie culture that thinks that they can take any culture from any part of the world and sort of make whatever they want of it.
Time was different. I think it was in the beginning, let's spread love, let's spread acceptance, let's have fun together.
For a native person to see that is, like, it's not a little anything, but it's hurtful, it's harmful, it's real harm.
From the Grote Boyle studio, I'm Jen Chavez, and this is The Evergreen, a podcast from OPB about the place you call home. Today, we're bringing you the story of the Oregon Country Fair, how it houses hundreds of artists every year, and its history, from hippies to native belonging. OPB's Oregon Art Beat producer Eric Slade and freelance producer Kunu Bercham helped make a documentary about the fair. They're here to break it all down. Eric and Kunu, thank you so much for being with us on The Evergreen today.
Great to be here. Very excited.
I know you both grew up going to the Oregon Country Fair. What was it like? Set the scene for us if you could. And Eric, let's start with you.
My first fair was 1983, and I got invited by a friend. And as soon as I was there, I just felt like, oh my God, what have I stumbled into? This is like, when you ask people what they love about the fair, what you hear most often is it's a place where I can really be myself. And that's exactly what I felt like. This is a space where everything is welcome. And I just knew, like, I want to come back forever.
Kuna, what about you? I know you also went when you were a kid.
Yeah, so I was born in Eugene. My first memories as a little human were going out there, and it was magical. It was like, I think as a kid, you're like, wow, all these adults are acting like kids, you know?
And Kunu, take us back further to when the fair started in 1969. What inspired it in the first place?
The very first fair was a fundraiser for Children's House, which was a hippie school in Eugene. And I believe that was the very first reason. And then back then it was called the Renaissance Fair.
Yeah, it's a great story. I mean, it's really a counterculture story. It's the 1960s. And that movement is happening all over the country, but especially on the West Coast. And Susie Przansky talks about that.
So in the 60s, there's an explosion of hippies in the Bay Area, just too much. So they said, hey, let's leave San Francisco, go out to the country, go find some communists, go north, go anywhere. And people did leave. And they moved to Oregon. I think that number of people coming together, you had protests going on at the university, but also that sense of play and creativity and the feeling that there is a way we could live differently and take care of each other better. I think all this really helped create the culture that helped give rise to the fair.
At the beginning, fair organizers rented the site. But in 1981, organizers thought, can we buy the land? That's when
they asked the Keseys if they could get the Grateful Dead to play for a benefit concert on the fair site.
That's Susie Przansky again. She's the author of Fruit of the 60s, the founding of the Oregon Country Fair. And she's talking about Ken Kesey, the celebrated author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and creator of the legendary Acid Tests with Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead. They got the band to perform, but Susie recalls the fundraising effort didn't quite go as planned.
When the music started, the people at the entrances all came in to listen to the music and quit selling tickets.
Which meant, of course, they stopped making money to help the fair.
But the Grateful Dead donated to the fair $10,000 anyway to help them with the down payment on the land.
And because of that help, the fair was able to purchase the property. But the story of the land doesn't start with the fair. It goes back further.
Settlers coming into the country here saw this as land without value. It's like wasteland. Native people looked at these places as gardens, as paradise, as overflowing with materials for, our material culture and foods that sustained families and people.
That's Joe Scott. He's a traditional ecological inquiry program director and a member of the Confederated tribe of Siletz Indians. And Kunu, I know you interviewed Joe at the site where this fair takes place every year.
So we're at the Oregon Country Fair site in a part of the Long Tom watershed.
And this land is actually an archaeological Kalapuya site as well. Can you tell us more about its history?
Yeah. First of all, it's an honor to share this history. This is something that I, as a Native American person, have been wondering since I was a kid going out there.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, I would see these little informationals about the Kalapuya tribe and, black and white pictures from, way back when. And there's always been, a problem, as a Native person with our representation about seeing us through this lens of the past and not the present. And, growing up as a kid, I was like, I think I know Kalapuyan people that,
yeah, right,
are here today living, I just was like, I'm pretty sure they're still here, And so with this production, we were able to interview Joe Scott and also Dr. David Lewis and really learn about the Kalapuyan people, which there are many different bands. And what we learned along the way is that the Chela Mela band of Kalapuyan-speaking people are the original inhabitants of that area.
I know there are efforts by the fair to preserve the land and its history, but there's still ongoing tension. What have you heard from the folks you've talked to about this?
I want to start this off by saying I think that people at the fair are well-intentioned and are doing, much-needed work currently. But growing up, I think for both Joe Scott and Dr. Lewis, they grew up where their tribes were terminated. So they didn't even become official tribal members until they were in their 20s, I think. Mm-hmm. So they grew up in a time when their indigenous identity wasn't even recognized or respected by all the powers that be. So it was really hurtful, and they were gracious enough to share their stories and their experiences. And, it was hurtful for, these Native people from the area, from the Willamette Valley, to see hippie culture playing Indian, right? With teepees.
There's a part of hippie culture that thinks that they can take any culture from any part of the world and sort of make whatever they want of it.
This is something that I saw growing up around Eugene is people were selling experiences to go to a sweat lodge or something, right? So these things that are ceremonial and spiritual, and they were being, monetized and disrespected, right? So that's kind of the culture that the country fair kind of came out of. We were lucky enough to interview Dr. David Lewis, a PhD assistant professor of anthropology and indigenous studies at Oregon State University, and he's a member of the Confederated tribes of Grand Ronde. When we were interviewing him, he had some, pretty serious thoughts about this idea, I think, that is all around Indian country right now, and it's called land back, the idea of returning land to tribal people. And so, I think this can be like a hot take type of a thing, but if I really, try to understand where he's coming from, it makes sense to me.
We own our names, we own our stories, we own our songs, we own our art.
And I know like a central question that you ask in your work on this project is, can the Oregon Country Fair hold the balance between, tie-dyed celebration and deeper cultural respect? I mean, what do you think? Can it?
Yeah, I think the country fair can, and I think they're doing it. It's something where, people don't like being criticized, right? It's just human nature. But I think that this kind of rainbow gathering, rainbow tribe like energy started with good intention. And honestly, I think some of those early ideas come from the Hopi prophecies, which is the Hopi tribal people have these prophecies about in the future there'll be the rainbow tribe of people, right? And I think that's where a lot of these ideas came from. But also back then there wasn't the language and the understanding we have about like diversity, equity, inclusion. There wasn't even language to describe that. So in my own life, I actually had a recent experience with, some older hippie in the community who is a friend, and they brought up the like, oh, well, I don't see color, And I'm like, okay, well, let me explain to you why that isn't cool anymore. That like maybe in those early days of Rainbow Tribe, the idea was I don't see color, like we're all equal. But now we know that, there's more language and understanding and like, well, actually, I want you to see my color and my difference and, the different things that I bring to the table.
Coming up after a break, all the things you'll experience at the fair and how it's trying to evolve. Thanks for listening to The Evergreen, our podcast from OPB about the place you call home. If you dig what you hear, subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll brighten your Monday morning a little bit with a new story about what it's like to live here each week. You can also follow OPB on Instagram at OPB Photo, or follow me directly at Jen Chavez OPB. That's Jen with 2 N's, and I'll keep you posted on everything Team Evergreen is up to. And remember, this episode about the Oregon Country Fair, a bunch more cool videos and stories coming out this week about it too, and all the great OPB storytelling you hear on this show is made possible by the support of many thousands of OPB members. Public media is a beautiful thing, and you help us make the magic happen. Support our journalism by becoming an OPB sustaining member today at opb.org/pod. And now, back to the show. So, Eric, the Oregon Country Fair houses hundreds of performers and artists every year. What are some of the coolest performers and artists someone might see at the fair?
Yeah, there's so many. It's very hard to choose, but one of my favorites is a group called Calliope Circus. And actually, if you Google Oregon Country Fair, the photos that come up are a lot of Calliope Circus because they're just this wildly creative group of clowns and performers. And they go out and their whole intention is to engage with fairgoers as they're entering the gates. And they involve them in their ridiculous theater.
This year we have a ship of fools and all of the souls who wound up on it. We've got a cartographer and an oracle and a sea serpent and the wish clarifier. And we've got myself, the captain. Ha ha.
Their costumes and their makeup are so incredible, so beautiful. So anytime you go to the fair, you'll stumble across Calliope Circus at some point and you won't want to leave. They're so amazing.
Kunu, same question for you. Do you have any favorite artists or performers at the Oregon Country Fair?
I would have to agree with that, with those performers. And yeah, they're all throughout the fair all day long. That's kind of their, I forget what that crew's called, but they're like...
Oh, ambiance, right?
Ambiance, yeah. And yeah, they just give it that kind of, that touch.
It sounds like there's so much happening at the fair. I mean, watching your documentary is almost like wandering through the fair myself. What was it like to film there and see all the behind the scenes of this like massive group of artists all converging together?
It was crazy.
Yeah.
I gotta say, there's about 15,000 people who come through the gates every day at the fair. So there's a lot of people. It was very warm last year. It's like 90 degrees every day. And so we had 3 crews of 3 people each wandering the fair, trying to find all the different performers and people we were supposed to be interviewing kind of on time. So we had a whole crew on walkie-talkies so we could always be like, where are you? I'm over here. I'm in this meadow. We need to be over here. The stage, the show's about to start. So it was wild. Yeah.
Over and out.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. And so there's also a marching band that bursts out of nowhere. I love marching bands. What is that experience like? Please tell me more.
That's one of my favorite things because, you're in the middle of this bucolic forest and there's birds chirping. And then suddenly, like around the corner, a 40-person marching band comes marching down these dirt paths. And it's so incongruous. Like, why would there be a marching band marching down the middle of a dirt path? But there is. And then you watch people's faces and they're so surprised. And they're actually really good musicians. These are musicians who fly in from all over the country just to play in a marching band at the country fair. And they're really good. They sound great.
Walking around the fair seems magical, almost like
a fairy tale. Around every corner is something new and bright that we want to stop and look at.
That's Stormy True, a coordinator at the fair. When she's walking around, there's lots of cool art and happy people celebrating. But the fair isn't perfect. For one, it's a mostly white event.
In the West Coast and in festivals, there is this unspoken language of who belongs, who doesn't belong, how you need to act, how quiet you need to be. I didn't fit in any of those. We're still here. We still choose to show up to fair every year, so there is a part of something that we resonate with. We know what it is, and we still choose to come. Some of us, they stop coming. They stop coming.
Organizers like Stormy are trying to change that. Stormy helped create an affinity space called the Oasis for Black and Indigenous folks and other people of color.
When someone walks into the Oasis, I would like them to have the feeling of belonging. That's like exhaling, maybe taking off your shoes. It feels like you made a new friend.
Eric, I know you met the Oregon Country Fair president. What did you hear about his vision for the fair and some of the changes they're hoping to make along these lines?
Yeah, we talked to Anthony Jackson, AJ, he calls himself, and he acknowledges there are big issues with the fair. And like so many groups that started in these, the idealistic counterculture 1960s, the intention was great, but they missed some things along the way.
I don't pretend that this is a perfect place. Like most communities, it sometimes mirrors the outside world. That's one of the things that I'm most excited about as fair president is how do we create a passion for people that look like me to come in?
Okay, something fun that y'all did in the documentary was you asked fairgoers to describe the fair in one word.
Oregon Country Fair is magical.
Colorful.
Beautiful. Powerful.
Bliss.
Family.
One of a kind.
Si bella.
It's basically like hippie paradise.
I'm going to turn the tables, do the same to y'all. How would you describe the Oregon Country Fair in one word?
Framily.
Oh, what does that word mean?
Friends and family.
Love it.
Framily.
Framily. I love it. All right, Eric.
I think I'd say truthful.
Why?
I feel like what attracts me about the fair is it's the music, the food, the performers, all that, but it's mostly the people. And when you walk down the path, you actually get to meet people eye to eye, and they'll look you in the eye and smile. And there's a truth behind that you don't find most places.
I like that. Both great answers. Thank you. And before I let you all go, why was this important to you to tell the story of the Oregon Country Fair and its history? And I mean, what do you hope to see the fair do or become or create going forward?
I think it's important because it's hopeful. It's a dream of how the world can be. That's always been the intention since 1969 when they started. It was, let's create something that mirrors the way we want the world to be. And of course, it's imperfect but ever evolving. And I think anytime we can hold out a little bit of hope for the world, that's a good thing. What I hope in the future the fair can continue to work on and keep doing is making sure it really isn't a space that everyone is welcome to and everyone feels hopeful about.
What about you, Kunu?
When people talk about the country fair, they talk about like the magic of the land, the magic of the space, the meadows. And so, that for my contribution, I wanted to learn more about the land. Like thousands of years ago, there were tribal people that like hung out here too, so like I wanted to learn more about that idea of it being like a continuous, human, like a summer camp. That was really important for me to learn more about that. And then one thing that just super sticks with me is the parking lot, all the lots when you get ready to go in. In the winter, they're all flooded. So it's like a lake. And then in the spring, there are these camas fields, and they're just the most beautiful, like blue and light purple. And that's something that I never saw.
And you saw it getting to work on this project.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. What a wonderful note to end on. Eric and Kunu, thank you both so much for coming to talk to us about the fair today.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, thanks, Jen.
That was OPB's Oregon Art Beat producer Eric Slade and freelance producer Kunu Bercham. You can find a link to OPB's documentary on the Oregon Country Fair in our show notes. Thank you so much for listening to The Evergreen, a podcast from OPB. Mia Estrada produced this episode, and our technical director is Stephen Cray. Nalene Silva engineered the episode. The OPB podcast team also includes Julie Sabatier and Sage Van Wing, Eric Slade, Kunu Bercham, Jewel Gilfillan, Jeff Kastner, Laron Kachaya, Dan Evans, Brooke Herbert, and Andy Adkins did the interviews you heard. The music in this episode is from Audio Network. And if you have a question for us, please reach out. Email us at theevergreen@opb.org. I'm Jen Chavez. Catch you later.